Just how I am. I'm just a hooper.
And the NBA is back. Zion Williamson, it goes and one. Strong finish, an explosion. Zion razzle dazzle.
You can't get much more efficient or effective than Zion Williamson has been.
Time to let's get it restarted, my friend. These two teams, the cream of the Western Conference.
Kawhi with a drive. LeBron James. Davis. Got another one.
The battle of LA is real.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into First Take. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, I'm Molly Karen Rose. It almost felt like the good old days last night, guys. How amazing. Two incredible games decided by 2 points. Let's get right into it, and we begin with the Battle of LA. Of course, James go-ahead basket with 12 seconds left gave the Lakers a thrilling 103-101 win over the Clippers that moved the Lakers closer to clinching the #1 seed in the West. They are now 6.5 games ahead of the Clippers with 7 games remaining. Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell did not play for the Clips. LeBron doing LeBron things. Here's the King after that win.
I love having the ball in my hands, late in the game, tie game, being down, being up. We had a 3-point game with like 40 seconds to go. We got a great look for Danny. He missed it. Paul George came back and hit a 3 to tie the game. And for me, just try to, be aggressive. I feel like I got some contact at the elbow, by Marcus Morris. They didn't call it. But, like you was told when you was a kid, to start playing basketball, if there's no whistle, you keep playing on. So I was able to follow my own shot and, put us up for good.
Let's get it. Stephen A., what stood out to you most from this thriller?
Max Kellerman. I'm not feeling good this morning, Max. I'm not feeling good. We've religiously talked about this topic. I've always conceded the Lakers were not the best team. It was the Clippers, but I've got the Lakers winning the championship because I don't believe that 2 of the top 5 players on the planet Earth should be losing in the NBA Finals or should be derailed from capturing an NBA championship. Last night, even though it's been a hiatus, even though it's been a break, Max, even though we get to look at the fact that they've been gone, everybody rusty and all of this other stuff, does not matter to me. Last night was the first time I looked at the Lakers and I said, I don't like this. I don't like their chances right now. Because I think about Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams being gone and the fact that it took LeBron and AD playing 34, 35 minutes respectively in this contest to come down to the nail-biter that it was. I watched the Lakers shoot worse from three-point range. I watched the Lakers shoot worse from the field. I watched LeBron James, even though, again, he's rusty and all of this other stuff, he'll be significantly better. But I'm just thinking about the offense that Lou Williams brings to the table, even though he's compromised defensively. I'm thinking about the physicality Montrezl Harrell brings to the table where Anthony Davis may not look the way that he looked last night. And for the first time, Max Kellerman, for the first time, I find myself very, very concerned. Even though, again, I always felt that the Clippers were the deeper and the more talented team. My attitude is they don't have LeBron and AD. That can overcome everything. Last night, Max, was the first time I found myself significantly nervous about what I saw, Max. I'm not comfortable.
Well, as usual, we're on the opposite ends of things because before yesterday's show, or during yesterday's show, before this game, you were talking about the Lakers, and I was pro-Clippers in terms of what we thought about their chances. Who was big on, in crunch time, right? I'll take Kawhi over LeBron. You take LeBron over Kawhi. Stephen A., you're right about everything you said. I think the Clippers are the better team, and they showed that they weren't nearly at full strength. When they've been at full strength this year, what are they, 10-1? They said the stat during the game. They almost never lose. 1 loss on the season when at full strength. And by the way, Shamet is not going to make the negative contributions he made. You just take him out of the game, the Clippers probably still win. Rushing shots, missing shots, turning the ball over. He was terrible. Yeah. And he's a nice little player normally, nice little contributor. So I get everything you're saying, but the takeaway from last night, Stephen A., has to be, if we're just being honest emotionally about what that game was about, was LeBron James in crunch time. I'm here to say it. I'm man enough to admit it. I'll still take Kawhi in crunch time, most often. I'll take them in the playoffs. Like, show me you do that in playoffs against Kawhi, LeBron. But last night, Stephen A., before the half, in a close game, a game that was wide one way, wide, a little game of runs, and then it tightened up, and at the half, LeBron accepted the challenge. This is something you always talk about. Some dudes, like LeBron, always making the correct basketball play. But sometimes in a larger sense, the correct basketball play is accepting the challenge of the other team's superstar, especially when you play the same position. And LeBron took him defensively at the end of the half and stopped him. And then, at the end of the game, Stephen A., the takeaway from this game for me is LeBron James following his own miss for the go-ahead bucket. And then on the other end, first stopping Kawhi, and he gave the ball up to Paul George, and then stopping Paul George. That was championship stuff by LeBron. Unfortunately for him, it happens in the restart of the regular season in a game that, other than the psychological impact is largely meaningless for the Lakers. But Stephen A., at the end of that game, LeBron did not have a great game by his standards. AD was the best player on the floor for them. And Kawhi had a better game than LeBron overall. But when it mattered most, that man took the shot, followed the miss, showing more will in the moment of truth. And then on the other end, stopped their two best stars from scoring. I mean, like, Kawhi had to give the ball up. That was great stuff from LeBron. That was my takeaway. He was the king last night.
Well, listen, I'll give him more credit for the defensive plays against Kawhi and Paul George than it was for the offensive putback, because I thought that was a poor shot that he took that ultimately he followed because nobody boxed out, which is why Doc Rivers was disgusted. But what I will also say to you is this. Ladies and gentlemen, alert. Paul George is healthy. He dropped 30 last night. We know that Paul George is capable of that. We've been talking so much about Kawhi and LeBron and Anthony Davis because Paul George wasn't one of those three that we forgot. This brother is a bona fide star in this league. And this dude can get stuff done. We've seen Paul George perform in big moments time and time again. Last night doesn't even qualify because it was just a return to the NBA regular season. But I'm telling you right now, because of the shoulder surgery, the health that he is enjoying, he's not, just stymied by injuries and things of that nature, combined with Kawhi Leonard, exercise and load management and what have you. When they've been on the floor together, we know what they're capable of doing. What I'm saying is that Paul George last night, if that Paul George is like that in the play, I'm going to sit up here and be like, is the Clippers.
The history of the league is.
Because I don't know. What the hell can they do about that? What can they do about that?
The history of the league is two savage two-way wings are the best things you can have. Jordan and Pippen. And eventually, and especially if Wade would have been in his prime still, but he was still an all-star, LeBron and Wade. Good luck stopping that when those guys are firing on all cylinders. Kawhi and Paul George are in their primes and hungry. They're thirsty for that chip. And you could see Paul George, he got the 30, and we showed some of those not so easy buckets, but it felt like an easy 30 to me at times. When he got hot from three to narrow the gap and eventually give the Clippers the lead.
It is easy for him.
It was like an easy 30.
It is easy for him, number one. Number two, one of the reasons why I was comfortable picking the Lakers is because I'm looking at Kawhi Leonard and the load management. I'm looking at Paul George knowing that he wasn't 100% healthy. I'm looking at the lack of chemistry and cohesiveness that they were going to be able to enjoy because you had to work them in to the situation throughout the regular season. Remember, the season's supposed to be over by now. It's July 31st. The season was supposed to be over a month and a half ago. Had that been continuing, still health might have been compromised. You never know with those guys. And as a result, who knows what would have transpired. Right now, with him being healthy, it is scary to watch. Because let me tell you something. Kawhi had a good game, but you almost didn't need it. I mean, the way that Paul George was flowing right now, he can handle the ball, he can defend, and he can hit threes. It's not like the brother can't hit threes. Both of them can hit threes.
Great players.
And the Lakers are obviously a big team that will rim protect and win at the rim. But Montrezl Harrell is going to have something to say about that as well, particularly since he's playing for a new contract. I'm not going to jump off the boat with the Lakers, but I'm telling you right now, to come back and to be without Harrell and to be without Lou Williams and to require that in order to win the game concerns me. And Lou Will, that's right.
Lou Will, I mean, come on. Lou Williams offensively is just about as good as anyone. Look, Paul George, you know when I say, hey, if KD can come back as 80% of what he was, they can chip up in Brooklyn. When I think of 80% of what he was, I think of Paul George. Paul George is not just a normal all-star. He's not an MVP quite, but he's an upper echelon all-star. The one thing I'll say about the Lakers, for Lakers fans, and I am one, and I was encouraged by this, the Clippers, I think they're a better team. I think Kawhi is the best player in the world. In spite of LeBron's heroics last night, I'd rather have Kawhi at the end of the game than anyone in the NBA. All that said, I saw a Lakers team where LeBron was orchestrating an offense early, and then when he needed to one-on-one, took over the game late. And I saw a Clippers team, a lot of ISO. LeBron has this thing going in a way where if they are firing on all cylinders, the Lakers could very well win a championship this year. It could happen. I still like the Clippers, but I saw that if you can conduct the orchestra the way LeBron was doing it, and then when they need you most, when it's not going your way, take over the way LeBron was willing to, both ends of the floor, you can win a championship.
I still like the Lakers. I just don't like the fact that it required all of that without Lou Williams and Harrell on the floor. I don't like that at all. It should not have required all of that to beat the Los Angeles Clippers last night. I know Patrick Beverley came back after his 4-day quarantine. I know that Kawhi and Paul George were still there. But considering the Lakers' size, the Lakers' athleticism, and the greatness of LeBron and Anthony Davis, to me, it should not have required that in order to squeeze out a victory against the Clippers last night. I don't like that.
Gotta like what you got from Dion Waiters, though, Stephen A.
Yeah, that's good. Him or JR. One or the other has to produce each game.
For sure. By the way, guys, we'll get to see both teams Saturday on ESPN. It's going to be Lakers, Raptors, and Clippers, Pelicans. We'll have much more in this game later. Jay Williams, Kendrick Perkins will join us. Meanwhile, breaking news involving Major League Baseball. Jeff Passan joins us live after this quick